You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
Alrighty, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and joined by your co-host, Kevin. Kevin, how are we doing tonight?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Another Friday night. Getting ready to head in. Not quite by Mageddon from last year, but there's still 6 teams on a bye this week, right? So lots of things that we're trying to move around and figure out with our lineups. A fair amount of fantasy players, or fantasy relevance that are on buys, Cowboys and Browns to kind of headline it, and then injuries on top of injuries on top of injuries. No Jamar Chase, no Keenan Allen, no Jonathan Taylor, the Niners, right? So you don't have McCaffrey, you don't have Saquon, right? No Nick Chubb this week. People are scrambling, and I understand why. Especially in running back, there is a lot to be wanting out of the running back position this week. So, man, I'm ready to get into it, try and help some of these folks navigate this, because this is brutal this week. It's a tough one.
Let's a couple of things there. Let's just kind of address them off the top of the bat before we start diving into some of these games, start going through some of these lines, start doing all of what we do here on the Friday Night Lights. And one of the things that I've seen some interesting things out there in the Twitter sphere and Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and all of these places out there that people go and consume fantasy football content. People out there saying that Deion Jackson is going to be a bust, is going to be a trap play, is going to be all of these things that aren't a positive light. And I guess my point on that is you're picking up a dude off the waiver wire. You were quite literally picking up a guy that last week you wouldn't have started, 2 weeks ago you wouldn't have started, right? If anytime Jonathan Taylor is healthy, you're not going to start, but he's there. He's able to be played on a week in which you just ran through a bevy of names that are not options for you out there. And if you needed to pick something up because you've got guys on IR, you've got guys on bye, you've got injuries, you don't have necessarily a lot of depth play out there when it comes to running back, like, why in the world would somebody shy away from playing Deion Jackson as a flex or an RB2? And I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that one.
I think he's a top 20 back this week. I mean, look at lack of options, right? You're going to play him over A.J. Dillon. You're going to play him over Damian Harris. Chuba Hubbard's out, so you can't even say that there in that type of split backfield. You could make an argument that he is going to be better than Leonard Fournette this week going up against a Rams defense that does a pretty good job of stopping the run, right? So you could make that argument. I think you could also make the argument that because of volume alone, he could very well be more relevant than David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert this week, because those guys are splitting carries. So again, 6 teams on a bye. Of those 6 teams, 5 have extremely relevant fantasy running backs attached to them. And then JT goes down on top of it. Like, this guy absolutely has run. He's a top 20 play. I know it's New England's defense, but volume. That's what you're looking for here. And he can catch out of the backfield, right? So there's no Naeem Hines worrying about that. Zach Moss is getting integrated in. I don't think he's going to see a whole lot of work here. So I'm all for it. Grab Jackson, plug and play.
That's kind of my thoughts there as well. Is I think that he's absolutely can be a value for you this week. And if you're out of options, right, like, why wouldn't you go that route? If you weren't able to pick up the Donta Foreman, over the last couple of weeks on the waiver wire, if you weren't able to cash in on some of these guys that started getting some midseason value, like, why wouldn't you go that route? Like, that's one of the things that when I see some of that stuff out there, it just kind of irritates me a little bit from the standpoint that if you're coming across and you're taking some of that, I think you're getting a little bit of bad advice. Some other kind of things that really kind of stuck out, and I was actually very happy with our show and our group here, was the fact that we weren't one of these entities out there telling you to buy low on Devontae Adams. I saw that all over, especially Twitter this week, where a lot of very big name fantasy football content creators, all of that, were talking about buy low on Devontae Adams. In order to buy low, you've got to have somebody selling low. And you tell me who out there is selling Devontae Adams for a bag of peanuts, and I'll buy, absolutely. But he's a top 10 wide receiver, getting 30% target share with huge name value on it. Like this is, he had one bad game. I get it. He's had a couple of bad games here. He is more what we've seen from a consistency standpoint out of the wide receiver group than what we've seen the last few years on that one, right? But again, this was something that we told you to expect going into the season, that he was no longer going to be the elite of the elite and be a guy that's putting up consistent points week in, week out. We told you that he was going to be more inconsistent. He was going to have a heck of a ceiling play, and his floor play was not going to be near as good as what it was. But, to try and go out there and say buy low on a guy that, is a top 10 back getting, or top 10 wide receiver getting 30% of the target share, like nobody, and a big name to boot, right? This wasn't like you had somebody come off the, kind of come out of nowhere, hadn't really had big fantasy seasons before, things like that. Like Christian Kirk when he was a, top 10 wide receiver earlier this year, right? Like it's not that kind of name play. It's Devontae Adams, who at his peak and at his ceiling is he still a weak winning wide receiver. He just doesn't have the floor like he did. And, again, if you've got him on the roster, you're not selling low. So kind of a 2 cents there. And that was one of the things that kind of irked me out there from a lot of things I saw from advice people were giving. Anyway, I digress. I can get off on a rant all night and continue going down this rabbit hole. Any thoughts on that one?
No, I think you're spot on. I mean, I think you'd probably have better luck trying to get a Chris Godwin than Devontae. And really, Chris Godwin's the guy that I'm trying to acquire like heavily right now before the trade deadline. Like I am believing the fact that, Tom Brady rallied the troops and said, look, I understand that I've been out of it. I am back in this. Like, we have a job to do. Let's finish the season strong. Let's make some noise. Like, it starts with the Rams, who kicked us out of the playoffs last year. Here we go, rah, whatever. And I'm buying it for Godwin. I mean, the targets are there. We've seen the metrics. When Godwin plays, he is Brady's first look. He just is. Mike Evans has the bigger splash plays. Mike Evans, has some more touchdowns behind it, right, to kind of make up for the lack of targets that Godwin sees over him. But week in and week out, Godwin is a great piece to try and add as a wide receiver too, right? He will be the second wide receiver on your team and provide wide receiver one upside potential every single week. So he's a guy that I absolutely am trying to acquire. I don't know if it's a buy low per se, but you're trying to convince your trade partner that the Bucks are done, washed up, and finished, right? And you're, blah, 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 blah. So that's why you're trying to get him right now. And I think you'll ride him well in towards the playoffs.
Right. And you look at Tom Brady right now. Tom Brady is still putting up good passing yards. It just hasn't come in the form of touchdowns. And that's been a lot of his fantasy downfall this year. The Bucks aren't necessarily scoring points, but they're moving the ball through the air still incredibly well. And Chris Godwin is a major factor of that. And in half point leagues, PPR point leagues, absolutely. I like that thought, and I like that as a guy to go out and try and acquire now as well. Did have a question coming in over on Twitter earlier today asking, would you keep Isaiah Pacheco or Jeff Wilson for rest of season in a PPR?
I mean, I guess I'm going to lean Jeff Wilson because of Raheem Mostert's propensity to get injured. Pacheco's kind of fun and splashy. I know, Derek, you have some pretty strong opinions about this guy and what's going on in Kansas City. But I think it's probably going to be Jeff Wilson down there in South Beach.
No, and I think you bring up a great point there on that one. And right, we talked a little bit about this on the Tuesday show, and maybe it might have been even after we were off the air a little bit there on Tuesday, that I think that Isaiah Pacheco very well is going to be the starter kind of going forward. But even if that's the case, I don't see it becoming a point where Kansas City is going to go into a heavier timeshare for any one of these running backs. These running backs are getting, it is almost a pretty split even workload on these things. And while Pacheco may be out there being the starter on this one, CEH is still going to get plenty of run on this one. You've seen Jet McKinnon still get plenty of run on this one. And the percentage of timeshare these guys is getting is, more what you would hope that these guys were getting from a number of opportunities in a lot of the game script, right? Like you're seeing a lot of these times that these running backs for Kansas City are getting 17 to 25% of the snap share. That's the type of number of opportunities you would hope for, is them getting 17 to 25 opportunities per game to really have fantasy relevance there. So I'm there with you. I think I would rather take my shot on Jeff Wilson Jr. just from the standpoint of, I think that he has a if Mostert goes down, and we've seen it where Mostert has a hard time finishing seasons every single year, right? Like we've seen him not miss more games over the last few years than we've seen him necessarily play in games there. And from that aspect, I would take the Jeff Wilson Jr. just from the standpoint that they went out and acquired this guy at the deadline, sent Chase Edmonds away, a guy that they went out and acquired in free agency to come in, and they don't seem really to want to use, Myles Gaskin, some of these other running backs that they have on the roster down there in Miami. And Jeff Wilson Jr. has a connection with Mike McDaniels there as well. And there's a reason that, he got brought in at the trade deadline. It's because Miami wanted him and felt comfortable enough getting him, and then and also shipping off Chase Edmonds at the same time. So, I think you're spot on there, and I would also lean that way as well. Awesome. So got that one answered. Let's go ahead. We got Blurpy in the comments here asking the question. The team is Hurts, Cook, Kamara, Etienne, Gibson, Henry, Drake, Pacheco. Wide receivers, Pittman, D-Hop, Amon-Ra, tight ends, Waller, Hill, Likely, and Ingram. Any trade ideas? It's a 10-team league, 4-4, 2 flex. I know we went through this a little bit with you on Tuesday there, Blurpy, but let's go ahead and dive a little deeper. Trying to find a wide receiver for Gibson and Drake. Any ideas? Keenan Allen? Nope, I don't want a guy that just re-aggravated a hamstring injury and hasn't really played since week 1. Don't need these two backs and could be high risk reward for my team. Or package Gibson and Pittman for wide receiver. I think that could be the move there, is package up Gibson, package up Pittman, and you could go out and get somebody.
Again, you want to target. So you want to target, as you're looking at this, high target share volume guys who have possibly underperformed. Chris Godwin. You can take a stab at Devontae. See what the Devontae Adams owner wants, right? Like, we're not saying that he's going to sell low, but it's worth kicking the tires on, right? Like having that idea. Again, Godwin. I'm going to keep going back to this. I really, really like Chris Godwin. Let's see. I don't know. Gibson and Drake, try a, Devonta Smith, maybe a Jalen Waddle.
I think Waddle's going to be.
He's going to be more. He's going to be more in that Adams price range for sure, maybe even more. But if you're looking for a wide receiver,
try something like that too.
Ayuk, yeah. I mean, ask and see what these guys are looking for. Like your depth at running back is crazy good. And even your wide receiver room's not bad, right? Like now that you have D-Hop, he's flashed the last couple games. He's going to continue to see a ton of targets. Amon-Ra St. Brown, same way. Yes, he got dinged up and has been a little bit more limited, but by trading away TJ Hawkinson, I have a belief that down the stretch, maybe not point for point, but I do think we could see the same type of fantasy boost out of Amon-Ra St. Brown that we saw last year at this point, right? Because it was about this week where we started really, all right, pick him up, and go. Amari Cooper's another one. That's not a bad one. CeeDee Lamb. Check out CeeDee Lamb and see what they want. Like you have the assets, right? I would definitely stay away from Keenan Allen, but I mean, you have the assets there, and if they're against what they're doing at wide receiver, you could look at packaging one or both those guys up and try and see if you can get yourself a really solid tight end, right? Because Waller, Hill, likely. I know we're playing Ingram this week. We were talking about that on Tuesday. Like, see if you can get a guy who you can start and rely on here for the rest of the season. Dallas Goedert, right? See what the Dallas Goedert owner is really looking for. And take a run at that. So,
I mean,
lots
you
of
might be able
options here.
with Goddard, you might be able to package up Waller, who has the name value there, has underperformed a little bit, and try and package him with, with a Gibson type of deal, or Drake, and see if you could try and go out and get Dallas Goedert. Like, that one could work too. What do you think about DJ Moore as a potential asset to try and go target? You may have the DJ Moore manager having not necessarily paid a ton of attention over these last couple of weeks, where he's exploded. We're starting to see him pick up to the point where we're seeing him get 11, 8, 7, 10, 11 targets over the last 5 weeks. And Ben McAdoo seeming to really figured out this guy can play, and go out and PJ Walker seems very willing to feed him the ball. Is that something that you may try and go after and package?
Yes. It is a limited passing offense to a certain extent, but he's seeing so much of the volume that it does make up for the shortcomings that the offense has throwing the ball holistically, right? So that's another guy to add depth to your room. So there's a couple different options, right? Amari Cooper, Brandon Ayuk, DJ Moore, check out Devontae, check out Chris Godwin. Like, there's a couple different names right there for you to be able to really take a flyer on, because you probably wouldn't have to give up as much. But Devonta Smith, like, I'm willing to bet the Devonta Smith owner is starting to get a little frustrated because we've seen so much AJ Brown here lately, and I think that's going to start to balance itself out a little bit. I don't know that he's going to catch AJ Brown. They brought him in to be this big X receiver, and he's doing a really good job with that. But Devonta Smith is still going to see his. So not as flashy, but I think you could package a Pittman and a Gibson and try and I don't know if that's necessarily the right deal. Just because Pittman is still going to see more targets per game, right? He's still going to have more opportunities than Devonta Smith, but that offense in itself is extremely limited with Ellinger throwing the ball.
Right. And one of those two that a lot of folks are extremely high on T. Higgins, which I understand because of the fact that Jamar Chase is going to be missing. But when you look at it, the target share for Devonta Smith and T. Higgins is not that dissimilar out there. And Devonta Smith widely kind of goes under the radar from how much he is in that offense there. And it's going to be some of those that you're going to see, some explosion weeks and some dud weeks just by the nature of how they do things in Philly there. So I do like that move, and I do like trying to go after that one there. But yeah, you certainly have the pieces and the pieces of the puzzle to try and make something happen and make something happen good for you.
Two more guys, Lockett or DK.
Yep.
Right? Gino's shown he can keep both of them involved. Again, depth pieces, right? Like, you're going to be starting Hopkins and St. Brown, but if you're looking to kind of round it out a little bit, see what they want for DK or Tyler Lockett. So definitely tons of options because of your depth at running back. You can do something with this, and as long as you can get these guys to respond to you, I think you can work on negotiating and be able to come up with a piece that you like here going forward.
Right. He did have that question. Do you think Pittman and Gibson too much for Amari? Maybe.
At face value versus what their team needs, right? Sometimes these trades just have to make sense, right? Gibson is the number 4, 5 running back. Yeah, he's the 5th running back on your team. He's not going to see the light of day. And maybe if the Amari owner is really hurting at running back, maybe you try it straight up first. I don't think that that's enough, So don't be surprised if he turns you down, but then you can start working that in. Well, what do you need? Do you need, Michael Pittman and Gibson? Like, does that help sweeten the pot here? Because you're going to need more than either one of those guys by themselves for Amari. So it might be that deal. And is it an overpay? In some people's eyes, yeah. But if it fills that need and bolsters your wide receiver room, and it gives him a playable piece at wide receiver in return and some running back help if that's where he needs it, it works for both teams. Like don't read into too much of it just on paper, good, bad, or indifferent. Sometimes it just has to, you're fitting a square peg into a round hole. Not all things are equal.
Yeah. And he's saying that Amari will be past his bye week, which is true. He's on bye this week. Pittman still has a bye. So, yeah, I mean, that there is some of that helps you out there. And actually, looking at that, I may go, my initial offer for Amari might be Pittman and Pacheco. That might be the initial offer. And then, you can kind of step up there. Gibson has a little bit more name value there. Something like that. Like, that's a way that you could do that, right? Like, it's close enough to start a conversation with having both Gibson and Pacheco, and then you could always come up to like a Pittman and Gibson to, and some of that when you're coming into a trade is making the other person, you knew what you wanted, you knew what you were willing to give up going into the trade deal on that one, and by doing some of that, you make the other person feel like they won as well in a trade offer and a trade deal. So, there's a lot to be said on that one. So let's see here. He said I could try Pittman and Drake for Amari and then Gibson for Gabe Davis.
Yeah, Davis is another guy that you could say. I'd rather have Amari than Davis just because of consistency. But, Davis has a great upside being in such an amazing offense there in Buffalo.
Right. Davis is a guy that I love as a flex play. Love as a best ball candidate, but it's one of those that you're going to see weeks where he uncorks for 4 receptions, 150 yards and a touchdown. And then you're also going to have weeks where he uncorks for 3 receptions, 30 yards, and you got, 4 points out of it type of thing. And that is just part of baking that into that conversation there. All righty. Another question coming in here from Hudbolt12 over on YouTube. Had Chase and traded Lamar Jackson, Ken Walker, Higbee, and ETN for Devontae Adams. I'm sorry. So he had Chase and traded Lamar, Ken Walker, Higbee for ETN and Devontae Adams. Picked up Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence to stream rest of the season. Have Cook, Schultz, Diggs, Gabe Davis.
Madison and Dillon.
Thank you. Madison, Dillon. And I think he also has DJ Moore there as well. It's a full PPR. He's curious if it's a bad move. I think I would have rather. I think you gave up. But
I think you gave up a little bit too much. I think between Lamar and Walker, those two alone are just as good, if not greater, than ETN and Devontae Adams, in my opinion. But I understand, because you had Diggs, DJ Moore coming along. Like, I get it. You get a little bit of depth at wide receiver, but you're probably giving up 5 to 6 points a week at the quarterback position, especially if you happen to play it wrong between Fields and Lawrence. The running back position, you're breaking about even between ETN and Walker, if not. Maybe you get a point back just with the way ETN is going to be used. And maybe you do make it up there because Schultz, okay, you get through this week and he is a Dak guy, so that'll work out. And then Adams over Davis, you should be able to pick the point. So I guess maybe as a whole, you do end up bolstering your roster by a couple points a week, which sometimes that makes the difference. Again, square peg, round hole. Optics of it, I don't love it. After we broke it down, I'm more settled and okay with it than I was before.
Yeah. I still think I'd rather have the Lamar, Ken Walker, Higbee side of things. But I can see why you did it. I can certainly see why you did it. I think Ken Walker, ETN, rest of the season are very, very close to each other to the point where, it's going to probably shake itself out to the point where it's going to be within a point or two difference there. Higbee, that Rams offense, it's not very good this year, but Higbee's been okay. It's really been Cooper Kupp and Higbee really is kind of it. Devontae Adams, like we talked about a little bit earlier, is kind of in the streaky side of things. So it's really going to depend upon which Devontae Adams you get. And for one of those that Gabe Davis and Devontae Adams anymore have about the same ceiling that you can see on that. But Devontae Adams has a little bit safer floor on that one there as well, just from the standpoint he's going to get 30% of the target share, and he's the first read in that offense. So I can certainly see why you did it. And when Chase comes back, that
helps because you're playing Diggs and Chase, right?
Right.
Like those are 1 and 2. Adams is going to go into your flex. There's much worse things than having Devontae Adams in your flex spot.
Right. And at that point, you can even play the matchups there a little bit on some of your wide receivers. You got some depth there. So I can certainly see why you did it. And I don't mind it now that we, kind of go through that. All righty. Let's go ahead. We're going to hit up some, again, guys, if you have any questions, comments, anything like that, let's throw them in the chat. Let's get them talked about. Let's get you guys ready to go for a week 9 here as we head into it. We're going to go ahead and start breaking down some of these games, get into some of the lines, what we kind of like, what we're kind of seeing out there, all of that good stuff. And again, if you have any questions, have anything like that, you can find us on all the socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, at Good Old Boys FF. And one of the best ways to support this independent podcast, head over to the YouTube channel, click the subscribe button on the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast YouTube channel. Also, you can now find it. We got the handle over there now where it's youtube.com/@GoodOldBoysFF to find the YouTube channel as well. So let's go ahead and get into our first breakdown here, first matchup. And we got the Chargers. We got the Falcons. Chargers favored by 3. The over-under on this one, 49.5. What are your thoughts on this one?
I'm taking the Chargers here. No Keenan Allen, no Mike Williams, no problem, because Gerald Everett is going to feast in this game. Austin Eckler is going to feast in this game. And I think in a couple different leagues, I'm playing Josh Palmer this week. I picked him up. He cleared protocol. I'm playing Palmer as the number 1 guy. He'll be my wide receiver 2 as I float through some of these bye weeks, but that's okay. Here nor there.
And I love Palmer as a flex too.
Yeah. So I have the Chargers this week. I do think it's the under though. I think the Chargers defense after this bye week is going to come in and really kind of set the tone here. I think they will do their best to kind of control this running game that's been working so well for Atlanta and try and force Mariota into some passes here. That's the secret. This Atlanta team isn't hard to scout. Right? They're running the ball. Mariota's scrambling a little bit. They're using these running backs. And then when he has to, he's throwing it to Pitts. Hopefully that continues a little bit more. I need Pitts to have a big week this week for me. A couple shots to Drake London and see how it goes. But Chargers are too much. This team is far too talented, even without their top 2 wide receivers, to not go in and win this game by more than a field goal.
You and I will disagree on the Falcons and the Chargers side of it because I've got the Falcons. I do think that they managed to keep this at a field goal or less. And it's interesting, right? The Falcons, awful against the pass. Chargers, great throwing the ball. So you've got strength on bad there. The Chargers, awful stopping the run. They're averaging a 5.7 yards per rush attempt. By opposing teams out there, one of the worst in the league, if not the very worst on that one. And the Falcons have been doing incredibly well running the ball. Mariota getting into the run mix. Huntley's been doing pretty well. Tyler Algier has certainly been getting some work in there as well. And I think that the Falcons managed to keep this game close, but I'm right there with you on the under. I do think that this is going to be one of those that the point total on this one set just high enough that I think we're going to see the under on this one. Not going to surprise me if this thing comes in at 25-22 type of thing as far as this score goes. but I do think that the Falcons managed to keep it field goal or less. One of the props I really liked, right? I just got done talking about how the Falcons are incredibly bad at pass defense, and the Chargers do really well at throwing the ball. They got a stud under center named Justin Herbert, and he's got a prop of 277.5 passing yards, smashing the over on that. This one.
And then going along with the other side, Chargers giving up, damn near 6 yards a carry on average here. So I'm taking Marcus Mariota over 33.5 rushing yards.
My home team league likes that prop.
I have a lot for your home team league this week.
I noticed when we were going through some of this, and I like them all. All righty, let's go ahead. We're going to hit into the next matchup here. We've got the Dolphins. We've got the Bears. Dolphins favored by 4.5. Over under on this one, 45.5. What are your thoughts here?
I'm taking Miami. They lost a pass rusher, lost their anchor in the middle of the linebacking core with Roquan being shipped out. I think that they're just weak now defensively. They're not the team that they were. We just saw Dallas put up, 49? Is that right? Last week against them. I think Miami can probably do more of the same. So I'm liking the over. I'm liking Miami in this game. And the Bears are going to be playing catch up for quite a while, I think, in this one.
Yeah, this was one of those that I really wanted to, go with the Chicago side of things and believe that they could keep this thing somewhat close and, think that they'd be able to run the ball and be able to keep it, at least shorten the clock a little bit. We managed to get to the over, but, you're right. When you were going through those things, the Bears are missing. Like that's one of the things that the Bears have been doing well is typically on the defensive side of the ball, keeping things close, keeping things in it. But I don't think that they're going to be able to slow down Miami's pass attack enough. Like this one's not going to surprise me to see both Waddle and Tyreek just go, absolutely gangbusters on this one. And so I'm gonna go with Miami as well. I do think that we see the over on this one. And one of the props that I really liked on this was Tua over 260.5 passing yards. That Miami, we have seen this thing kind of consistently with Waddle putting up, 100 yards plus, Tyreek putting up 100 yards plus, and just between their two wide receivers, they seemingly get well over 200 yards for Tua just in itself. And so, asking another, the other 3 or 4 guys on the field to chip in 60 yards is nothing.
No, absolutely. So I'm taking Mooney here to go over 41.5. I think having Chase Claypool there will help relieve a little bit of pressure on Darnell Mooney. Mooney and Fields have been hooking up with some more frequency here over the past couple of weeks. And I think I think that the trend continues here. I think that the Bears are going to be trailing. So what do you do when you trail? You have to throw it at least a little bit more. I know Chicago doesn't like to, but you have to throw it at least a little bit more. And I think Mooney is going to be the beneficiary of that. So over 41.5 receiving yards for Mr. Darnell Mooney.
I like that one. I think you're pretty spot on there. Spear IT in the chat. Welcome back in there, Spear IT. Always good seeing you in the chat. He's saying, what's up? And he's got a question for us as soon as it loads up here. I can throw it up here. All right, there we go. Spear IT asking, start Donta Foreman or Deion Jackson this week?
Foreman. This one's not close. Foreman's a top 12 play this week. But no Chuba Hubbard. The Bengals just got absolutely gashed by Nick Chubb. I think that this continues. It plays right into the Panthers playbook here a little bit. So I like Deonta Foreman here a lot this week.
Yeah, it's a smash Donta Foreman for me as well, right? Like Deion Jackson will get some run. He will do some good things there. He's definitely worthy of flex consideration, but between these two, it is a smash yes on Donta Foreman for me as well. So, alrighty, let's go ahead and speaking of Donta Foreman, let's go ahead and head right into that game. We got the Carolina Panthers taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals favored by 7, over under on this one, 42.5. What are your thoughts here?
I think Bengals cover, but it's going to be a late cover. I don't see them running away and hiding from this game. this offense has to do something different. Like we saw the first game without Jamar Chase, and it was ugly. So it is just one of those situations where they have to either find ways to get T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd and Hayden Hurst, better, whether it's better route combinations, different passing scheme a little bit all the way around, or they're going to have to scream at their offensive line a little bit and say, look, we need to find a way to run the ball and take a little bit of pressure off of Joe Burrow. But either way, they have enough offensive weaponry to cover, but it's going to be late. And I'm going to take the over. I think there's going to be some points scored in this game because I'm not sold on Cincinnati's defense either.
No, I'm right there with you. I think that Cincinnati does cover on this one. I don't see it where they come out and run away with it, but they did get kind of punched in the mouth a little bit, so I do think that they're going to respond this week. I could see that offensive line finding a way to step up, right? Like Cincinnati went out and heavily invested in that offensive line over the offseason, and they were looking much like that offensive line that allowed Joe Burrow to just get wrecked all season last year. So I think that they're going to have a source of pride on this one.
Smoked Monday night.
Yes,
a couple
he did.
Different times. It was so bad.
It was. And so I think that line is going to have a sense of pride, and they're going to come out and respond well to the point where we may have a Joe Mixon sighting this week. I think that is a very realistic possibility. I do like that over. Yes, I do like that over. I think that it's one of those. It's not going to surprise me to see Carolina put up 18 points, something like that. And if I'm thinking that Cincinnati's going to cover, that's going to push Cincinnati well into the the 25-point range on this thing, which gives us a 43 total, which carries us to the over on that one. And so I don't mind calling for Cincinnati. I don't mind calling for the over. I think both of those are very realistic shots. And we have a question down there in the comments, so I'm going to answer the question on Donta Foreman doesn't get much receiving work with this. There's a prop out there for Donta Foreman, 16.5 rush attempts. I'm going to take Donta Foreman over 16.5 rush attempts. He's been incredibly efficient this year. I think that continues. He's got some burst. He's got some pop. I do think that we see that. Not going to surprise me to see Donta Foreman also find his way into the end zone once on this one. And when you've got a guy that's got some burst, got some pop, he can break one off at any time and have a good run there. And when you're getting, I think he's going to see probably 18 to 20 rush attempts in this game. And when you're getting that much volume, it doesn't matter near as much if you don't get a ton of receiving work out there. That's what they call the Derrick Henry formula. When you can get 20 touches a game on the ground, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you only catch the ball once. If you're getting it, you're efficient. You find the end zone. It's all you want out of a running back.
Yeah. Again, Chubb saw 2 receptions Monday night, and it still worked. So, and they script for the Browns, right? That's a divisional opponent, and he still gashed them. So I'm not worried about the difference there. I think that it is much easier to play offense against the Cincinnati Bengals than it is offense against the New England Patriots. So all that, Foreman's been hot. Jackson's making a spot start. I think you're looking at probably 6 points difference in half-point scoring between these two guys at the end of the week, and it's Foreman for me all the way.
Yeah, I would agree on that. Got another comment coming in here. We'll hit that one up before we hit our next matchup here. There we go. Thoughts on James Conner? I think you got to hold on to him at least another week here.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you can't trade him. I'd hate to drop him and then be gashed by him here later on once he finally gets healthy. But man, oh man, this is reminiscent of his last year in Pittsburgh, right? Where he was just not healthy. And we had this great showing from James Conner last year. And we knew that there'd be some setbacks this year, just regression, whether it's touchdowns or touches or whatever it was. But I didn't expect him to miss 7 games. Holy smokes. It's frustrating. You can't trade him. I don't think you can drop him. I've been sitting on this in a couple of different leagues. I know as soon as I drop him, someone's going to go pick him up because they see James Conner on the waiver wire. That's the base. Like, I'm playing defense, keeping him there, and I just know that I'm frustrated that I wasted a pick on him.
Right. And yeah, his touchdown upside was very, very high last year. You are 100% right on that one. But I'm right there with you. When he plays, when he's healthy, he fits what Cliff Kingsbury and this Cardinals offense wants to do, which when they get inside the 10 zone, they want to run the ball straight up the middle. And that's what James Conner excels at. That's part of the reason that his touchdown upside was so high last year. Was the fact that he was in a perfect system and he was the perfect back to try and do that. And, like we said, coming into the season, he was going to be a touchdown dependent back to begin with because he wasn't going to see enough volume. Otherwise, that it was going to come off of him having to get to double-digit touchdowns to be very fantasy relevant again this year. And it certainly hasn't happened. But to the points that you just made, I don't want to sit there and let him go to the waiver wire because I don't think that he's going to be a landmine out there for somebody to step on and go that route. I think that he'll have more of an opposite effect where he'll turn into a cruise missile and torpedo me the week that I drop him, and then they play him against me and he has a 2 or 3 touchdown game. Like,
yeah, you've suffered through the suck, right? Like, you kept him around this long and suffered through the suck. The last thing you want is to then just absolutely be scorched earth as he runs through you because you decide to drop him, and then your opponent, wherever it is, down the line, in the playoffs, whatever, gets him on that week that, he goes for, 89 rushing yards, 56 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns and just roasts your ass. Like, you don't want to deal with that.
Nope. And I mean, this week too, like he's flex startable for me, but
is he going to play or is he still game time?
It looks like he's still game time. It looks like things are trending in the right direction there. If he plays, I'm willing to take a spot start on him as a flex.
I think you have to.
Yeah.
6 teams are on. I mean, you're again Saquon, CMC, Chubb. You're missing too many good pieces that you kind of have to in some leagues.
Right. Yes. And I see another comment coming in here. Steve on YouTube, welcome back into the chat, Steve. James Conner starting because I think prove it shut down a power back in James. We could see Seattle try, right? Like, this is again one of those that if James Conner's healthy, he's going. He's going to get you touchdown upside. The Cardinals have been playing better. Seattle is a bottom 10 team in allowing points to the opposing running backs there, meaning that they're 10th in most points given up to opposing running backs there. And they're, it's a plus matchup for running backs starting against Seattle. So again, right, if he's healthy, if he's playing, I don't have any problem throwing him in as a flex play. Any other thoughts on that one?
No.
Alrighty, guys. So Monkey Knife Fights, a game that is a game that we play over there is a game called Rapid Fire. You can play along with us over there. Rapid Fire, you're going to pick a winner. And if you use the promo code GOBFF, you can get a 100% deposit match up to $100 for new depositors. And oops, there we go. Computer glitches. You gotta love it. Alrighty. So Monkey Knife Fight, Rapid Fire. You got passing yards here. Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow getting 1.5 yard bonus here. Which way you leaning?
Allen. Joe Burrow looks so bad against the Bengals without having Chase there. So I'm going Allen here, and I don't think that 1.5 is enough to make up the difference.
I would agree with you. I'm also going Allen. Receiving yards, Justin Jefferson, Stephon Diggs. Diggs getting a 6.5 bonus.
I'm going to go with Jefferson here. Like, I think Diggs, I think this is going to be a Gabe Davis week. Like, Sauce Gardner's been doing a really good job. And while Diggs is still going to get his in different ways, with this just being receiving yards, you can see Diggs go for 50 yards and 2 touchdowns in this game. Like, that is extremely possible. And Davis kind of steps in. Jefferson, yardage-wise, I think we're going to be looking at 90 to 100 yards yet again from Justin Jefferson against the Washington Commanders. So 50 to 90, there's a big gap to cover there.
Yeah, I'm also going to go the Justin Jefferson route, who's put up plenty of yards. He just has, touchdowns have not necessarily been coming in droves this season, but the yards are certainly there. And so I think that you're right. I think that you're going to see the Justin Jefferson train go a little bit further down the track on that one. Steve saying that he likes Josh Allen because Joe Burrow, think up and down stock market regardless. I'll say that the NFL Cardinal Redbirds need a veteran player regardless because they're a young team trying to learn in the future. Yeah, I could see that one. Sai over on YouTube, do I trade Kamara and Devontae for Chubb, Godwin, and Debo?
Yes. Yes, I want Chubb, Godwin, and Debo over Kamara and Devontae. Yes.
Yeah. Yes, I would agree on that as well. It's tough giving up what Kamara's kind of become with Andy Dalton under the quarterback deal there, right? And what you're getting in the PPR side of things. Devontae Adams, we already covered that one kind of at nauseum here a little bit, but very much up and down, boom bust type of thing there. Godwin, while he hasn't seen the end zone, is going to go out there and pretty much get you 6 receptions for 70 yards every single game. Debo, when healthy, he's going to be good. And Nick Chubb is just a monster. That's a very consistent deal. So this is one of those that you've got a high floor. You've got a couple of kind of boom bust guys you're trading for high floor, but also give you a high ceiling type of trade there. So I like it. Good question there, Cy. Next matchup, let's go ahead and head there. The Packers are taking on the Lions, and the over-under on this one is the Lions are favored. The Packers are favored by 3.5. The over-under on this one is 49.5. Disregard the slide there, but let's go ahead and hit this one up. What are your thoughts on this game?
I'm taking Detroit here. I think this game's going to be gritty, grinded out. The Packers offense has not shown me that they can go on the road and beat subpar teams handily. So I think Detroit finds a way to stick in this game and make it interesting late. Packers probably win by a field goal. I'm okay with that, but at 4, I need 4 points to win here. I don't know. I don't think Aaron Rodgers has been playing that well. So I'm taking Detroit to cover, and I'm going to take the under also. I think for some reason this isn't going to get to 49.
Right, I'm kind of right there with you. For whatever reason, this one has a grinded out, gritted out feel of like an 18 to 22 type of matchup for me. And I think that the Packers do manage to cover, but I'm right there with you. I think that we're going to see an under by a significant margin here. One of the things that, Detroit, DJ Chark doesn't look like he's playing this week. They just traded off TJ Hawkinson as well. DeAndre Swift, banged up, still a little bit banged up, limited practices coming in here. He may play, he may not play. Even if he does play, he may be on a pitch count type of thing. So that concerns me a little bit with Detroit being able to consistently move the ball on that one. The Packers give up a bunch of yards on the ground, but they have been pretty decent against the run or against the pass there. And so I think at that point, it keeps both of these teams a little bit, and Detroit just gives up yards to everybody and anyone. So I see this being a little bit of a get right game for the Packers. So I'm taking the Packers to cover. I'm taking the under. One of the props I really like, Aaron Jones over 64.5 rushing yards in this one.
Oh, there you go. I'm on Ross St. Brown over 71.5 receiving yards. I don't think they have anywhere else to go with the ball right now. So he's going to see a ton of – it would not surprise me if he saw 13 or 14 targets in this game, as crazy as that number sounds.
I can believe it. I can absolutely believe that one. All right, next matchup here. We've got the Colts and the Patriots facing off here. Patriots favored by 6. The over-under on this one, 40.5. What are your thoughts on this one?
I'm taking the Pats in the under. No Jonathan Taylor, young quarterback making a second start. Belichick's going to throw him a lot of different looks, make things really difficult on him, where I think the Commanders probably just went in base coverage and tried to move the safeties around a little bit to confuse him. I think Belichick's going to say, screw this. We're not taking it down to the very end like Washington did. So I'm taking the Patriots to cover. And the under, though, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of points because this Colts defense is better than I think what a lot of it looks like. They've just been put in some really bad situations because of poor timing turnovers.
Yeah, I do agree with you that New England, I think, just takes Indianapolis to the woodshed here a little bit. But I do like the over on this one, just from the standpoint that the point total is so low on this one. Not going to surprise me to see, the Colts manage to get to 13, 14, 17 points, kind of somewhere in that range there. And I think that you see New England easily put up in the mid to upper 20s on this one. So not going to surprise me to see this one sneak to like 42, 43 points. So I'm going to take the over. One of the props I really like is Alex Pierce going over 28.5 receiving yards.
I'm taking a Ramondre Stevenson anytime, Tutty. I'm not convinced Damian Harris is going to be playing. He's still battling this sickness, much like what Devontae Adams had last week that kind of kept him off the sideline. And Stevenson has been amazing for the Patriots. Like, I don't know why they would go back to a two-back system when Harris does get right, because Stevenson has done more than enough to own this backfield by himself, and he's shown he can carry the load. He's able to pass block because he does have a bigger frame, and he can catch the ball in the backfield fairly well, right? Like, he's not the best receiving back in the NFL, but he does a good enough job. He can catch 3, 4, 5 balls a game and kind of help the Patriots offense chug up the field a little bit.
Yes. Steve saying that he likes the Colts to win because the Colts QB is still up and down, and it's like watching a lot of Jekyll and Hyde there. You may get, I guess at that point, Steve, is this a Jekyll or a Hyde? If he performs really well, is that the Jekyll or is that the Hyde? That's the real question there. Alrighty. Let's go ahead and hit our next matchup here. The Bills taking on the Jets. Bills favored by 11.5, over under on this one, 46. What are your thoughts here?
Jets cover. And I think the under. I believe they're calling for some weather up there in the Northeast. So Saleh has this defense playing well, right? Just overall. Now, I think the Bills can shut down the Jets offense also. So Bills money line. Jets cover the 11.5. I think this, 10-point game, something like that. But this is a game that Buffalo, you put them away and you get yourself that extra game on the division, and you're kind of coasting into the backstretch here a little bit. So Buffalo knows they need this one.
Yeah. Well, and this one too, that 11.5 is just tough with all the parity that we see in the league anymore. Zach Wilson hasn't been great, but he's been serviceable enough to, I think this is going to end up being a touchdown, even a 10-point game. But I don't know that you're going to see the Bills go out there and win outright by 2 touchdowns. Like, I just don't see that one happening here. So I'm going to call for the Jets to cover. I'm right there with you. I think that this is going to be an under type of game here. The fact that, you've got 2 pretty good defenses kind of going up against each other. Now, a prop that came up in this one that I really, really liked, Michael Carter over 29.5 rushing yards. The Bills have been good against the run, but Michael Carter has been getting some decent work and has been very efficient when his number is called. So this could be one of those that he could break that off even in one, a kind of a busted play. He slips out of the backfield and just takes one 30, 40 yards in a single deal. Like, plus the fact that I think he'll get 10 plus carries on that one. I think that he'll get the workload to do it and could break it on one single play.
Yeah, I think if that one was at like 37.5, I think I'd have a lot harder time, right? Like, ooh, that's a good number. I agree. That's too low. I'm taking Conklin over 27.5 receiving yards. I think the Bills' pass rush is going to be getting after Zach Wilson, and he's going to have to be dumping it off quickly and quite often. And I think Conklin's going to be the beneficiary of that.
Yes, I like that one a lot. Spear IT as the question, random question. He says, how long have y'all been doing the streams? It's so well done and not enough people watch it. Spear IT, spread the word. Get a friend, have them tell a friend, have them tell a friend, and let's get you all in here on the chats and doing this thing every Tuesday and Friday when we rock and roll this. But Kevin, we started the show back in October of 2019. Is when we done it. So we've been going at this for about little over 3 years now. And when we first started it, it was an audio only version of the podcast. We didn't do the live streams. We didn't do a lot of that stuff. It was just when it was the audio side of it. And then
it was all about the home league.
Yeah. And it was especially the first year and a half where, we were all about, going through the points in the home league because it's this crazy scoring. And we started, we had a few folks that wanted, the opinions more so on what, the NFL looked like, what our thoughts were around, fantasy in general, all of that. So kind of adapted it to, the format that you see now where it's, a lot more helping folks kind of win cash and trophies instead of just us kind of documenting our march towards, cash and trophies in the home league there. But, what I think we started doing the live stream where we started live streaming every episode that was right before the 2021 NFL draft. So as far as the actual live streams, we're live on Tuesdays, Friday nights. We started that right about the same time the NFL draft 2021 happened there. So kind of in that
that's
April
when we did
range.
that, our first Draft-a-Palooza. Holy smokes, that was a night.
Yes, that was. And we had a couple of specials kind of leading up to that one as well to kind of prep and get ready for that one. So, I don't know that I've got any more info I can shed on that one. Any other thoughts on the live stream or the show in general there?
No, I mean, obviously we've made some tweaks along the way. You guys have seen, we got, some sponsorships going on to some partnerships, I guess is really more what it is. Try and work some things out as we've climbed up and along the way. But I appreciate the fact that you like it. We appreciate that you continue to tune in and hopefully, we're helping and not hurting your chances this year because we definitely want to be able to see it roll across here when Derek pulls up the comment here week 18. You be able to come back in and say, hey, I smoked this guy and got my fantasy championship. Thanks.
Right. And that's the thing too, is we do this show year round. A lot of shows only do it during fantasy season or start like, a couple of weeks before the season kind of starts. Some of that we go year round, and obviously during certain parts of the year, we tweak it and focus on, other things during the NFL playoffs. Like that's one of those where we're just talking football. We're having lots of fun. We're talking props. We're talking, all of those types of things out there. And it's heavily focused on that angle there. We got all sorts of games and we come up with the Super Bowl prop sheet every year. Like that's always a lot of fun. As you get past that, we start looking at the draft, helping, especially dynasty players get ready for the draft on that one. And then really during the offseason, once we get past the NFL draft, it is all about turning the eye towards redraft and going through what I think we go through probably 10 to 15 to 20 players in some of these cases on some of these teams, but we break down every single NFL team and fantasy relevant options, even going 3 or 4 deep on some of these rosters, looking at running backs, 5 or 6 deep in some cases, looking at wide receivers. So doing everything we can to help you out there. And Spirit IT says he was 2-4 when he started watching. Now he's 4-4. There you go. 2-0. I like it. That speaks well. I like it. Alrighty, guys. So we just got done talking about how we, we're all about the cash and trophies here, which that's what we're here to do, is to try and help you guys win cash and trophies. And now at Trophy Smack, you can get your customized trophy. You can find the link to it down in the description on the audio version of the podcast and on the YouTube version. Clicking that link helps the boys out there, when you place an order there. But you can absolutely get custom trophies. You can get custom rings, belts, all of that over at trophysmack.com. Head over there, take a look. They've got some great products, some great things going on there. Let's go ahead and hit up our next matchup, though, here. We got the Vikings. We've got the Manders, and they're duking it out here. The Vikings favored by 3 over under on this one, 43.5. What are your thoughts on this one?
I'm taking Minnesota. I'm riding the hot hand here. Might be the most unimpressive 6-1 team that we've seen in a while, but nevertheless, they're 6-1, and I think that continues. They find a way to win this game by more than a field goal. It quite possibly is going to be a push, but I'm going to say more than a field goal for the sake of the show. But I think it's just a little bit too much. They're pretty well balanced, right? You have Dalvin Cook playing very well and almost quietly playing well, right? We have not covered him a whole heck of a lot on this show this season, but he's been doing his thing and plugging right along. Obviously, Justin Jefferson is playing at an extremely high level, and I think that continues here on the road against Washington as Minnesota. If they win this game and the Bears lose, I think they pretty well have it locked up. I mean, it's not guaranteed by percentages, but we're getting pretty stinking close here. Minnesota's going to be your NFC North champions.
You very well may be right. I think that they certainly can win the division there, but I don't think that they get any help this. Well, I'm right there with you. I think this is a field goal game, and that line looks that spread looks a whole lot like a push to me, but I do think that the Manders find a way to keep it just under the 3 points there, but I do think Minnesota wins this thing probably on a last-second field goal that pushes it to them winning by 2. But I do think that the under is in play on this one, and the under is going to hit. This one strikes me very much like a 22-20 type of game when it's all said and done. A prop that I really liked on this one was Hawkinson, newly acquired, coming in here. I think that they're going to get enough workload for him to get over 32.5 receiving yards.
I have a Justin Jefferson anytime tutty this week as my prop.
I like that one. I've got him in enough leagues that I'm going to be rooting for that one as well. So I like it. Jaden, welcome back into the chat there. Jaden, do you think Najee will get more touches after the Claypool trade? I don't know that you're going to see it necessarily more touches, especially running the ball on that one. That line's still bad. They still have a tendency to play behind. Where you might see Najee get more touches is once, if TJ Watt comes back and is fully healthy TJ Watt, and being that game wrecker on the other side of the ball to try and, put the Steelers in a little bit more plus position in that one and keep the defensive side of these things a little bit closer on that one. But I think George Pickens absolutely thrives on this one. And I think Deontay Johnson is another big beneficiary of the Claypool trade.
Yeah. I mean, optimistically.
Freiermuth's another guy that I think is also.
Yeah, I think optimistically, you might see Najee with 1 or 2 more touches a game, but I don't think you're not going to see 5 extra touches a game from Najee with Claypool leaving. It might be 1 or 2, but maybe that's enough to get him jump started and be that back that, everyone drafted here at the back end of the first round, top of the second round, and help propel you here the second half of the season. Because I'm right there with you, Jaden. I need it too.
Right.
Starting. I have been and am starting Devin Singletary over Najee every week. That tells you the position I'm in.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one too when we see how they integrate Nyheim Hines into that offense as well. So that could be an interesting one there too.
Yeah.
All righty, guys. Let's go ahead and we're going to hit up the next matchup here. We got the Raiders taking on the Jaguars. Raiders favored by 1.5. Over under on this one, 48. What are your thoughts?
Taking the Jags. I think the Jags find a way to win this one outright. I do like the under in this game. I think it's going to be a little bit more grinded out. I need to see that Adams is fully healthy and has his legs back underneath him after being sick last week. See if Josh Jacobs can bounce back off of a pitiful performance. This Raiders team has really not looked good except the one game against the Broncos in week 2. Is that right?
That
3,
sounds about
whatever
right.
It was
week 3, yeah.
Week 3. And that was by far their best game of the season against what has proven to be a really damn good defense. So outside of that, this Raiders team just does not look good. Jacksonville coming back home, they find a way to squeak it out.
I think the Raiders do manage to win this game in an incredibly close and an incredibly ugly matchup, I think is what this one's going to play out to be. like this one just gets a feel to me that it's going to be a little bit of a sloppy game. I don't necessarily have any statistical, backups on that one, but this one just feels like it's going to be a little bit sloppy. There's going to be, I'd probably look for 4 or 5 turnovers between these two teams combined here. So that being the case, I think we're going to see the under on this one. I do think the Raiders find a way to win this one, by about a field goal on this one. But one of the props that I really like is Travis Etienne over 76.5 rushing yards. He has been a beast and is running at an incredibly efficient clip this season, especially after James Robinson no longer being there. The Raiders have been gassed at times against the run, and I think Etienne can continue that.
I have Christian Kirk over 52.5 receiving yards.
I like it. All righty, let's go ahead and we're going to head over and take a look at the rapid fire for the afternoon slate of games here over on monkeyknifefight.com. Again, you can find the link to that one in the description on both the audio version and in the YouTube version of this show. Clicking that link helps the boys out there when you sign up and play using the promo code GOBFF, where you'll get a 100% deposit match up to $100 for new depositors over on monkeyknifefight.com. But that being the case, we got passing yards here. Tom Brady, Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray getting 25.5 bonus yards. Who's got more passing yards in this one?
That's a huge bonus.
Mm-hmm.
Huge bonus. I'm going to actually take Kyler this week. I think the Rams give Tom Brady enough issues because they put the pressure up front that I think the 25.5 bonus points coming out of Kyler is just enough to eclipse what Tom Brady's going to do.
Man, oh man, oh man. Like this one here, I was looking at these things earlier, and Kyler's prop is 262.5 for passing yards. Tom Brady is, I just had that here. Where'd Tom Brady go? 270.5 on that one. So Vegas thinks that they're going to be incredibly tight. Now, if I was to just go on props on that one, I think Tom Brady probably goes over it and gets somewhere in the 275-ish range, like just barely beats his prop. I think Kyler's on the opposite end of that and actually goes under to the point where we see him closer to about that probably about the 250 range on that one. But even at that point, right, that puts it right about 25 yards. And I'm going to go with Brady, I think, on this one. As much as I want to say the Kyler, I think I am going to take the Brady on this one. And it's extremely close on how I think that one's going to play out there. But I'll trust the GOAT more so. Receiving yards here, you got DeAndre Hopkins, Cooper Kupp. Kupp getting a 5.5-yard bonus.
How often do you see that? I'm gonna go with the Hopkins deal. I'll go the Arizona tandem. I can't believe that I'm giving Kupp 5.5 yards and not taking his side. But Hopkins has been on a tear. Kyler Murray loves to force feed him the ball, and I think we continue to see more of that.
Agreed. I think that you're going to see DeAndre absolutely have a blow-up game this week. Kyler has been 10 plus targets a game going towards DeAndre Hopkins, and he's been utilizing those well. Cooper Kupp has also been getting a monster number of target share up there in that 10, 11, 12 targets a game. But him coming off of that injury there a little bit, the Rams haven't been playing very well on the offensive side of the ball either. I'm going to lean DeAndre Hopkins there as well. So I'm taking Brady and Hopkins while you're taking the Kyler and Hopkins route there. So we'll see how that one plays out there. Speaking of your Arizona duo that you just took in that one, let's go ahead and hit up that matchup here. We've got the Seahawks facing the Cardinals. Cardinals favored by 2 over-under on this one, 49.5. What are your thoughts on this one?
I'm taking Arizona in the over. So when they played a couple weeks ago, we thought this was going to be a big-time game. I think it was 51. Maybe it was 50.5, something like that. As far as total points, it ended up being a real defensive struggle. That was without DeAndre Hopkins. He is back. I think that has drastically helped Kyler Murray and his fantasy output. And we are continuing to see that. So I think Arizona finds a way to win this game. I think we do. I think we see 50-plus points. overall here. So I'm going to say Arizona covers the 2 and hands Seattle a loss, and we get 50-plus points in what should be an exciting, high-scoring game.
I am going to take the opposite approach on that one. I think we're going to see a lower scoring game. The Seahawks have been pretty good on the defensive side of the ball this year, kind of limiting points on that one. You're right. DeAndre Hopkins has been on a tear. Kyler has kind of been unlocked a little bit with the addition of DeAndre Hopkins. It's going to be a lot of fun to see what this offense truly looks like with both Hollywood Brown and Nuke on it. And like that's one that's going to be a lot of fun to watch and see how that one comes to play. But I do think that Seattle manages to.
Kingsbury's not going to be around to see it.
It's true. It's very true. I think you're right there. But I do think that Seattle finds a way to win this one on the road, keep the lead in the division on that one, and I think we're going to see an under on the total points here. Speaking of under, I see Noah Fant going under 27.5 receiving yards.
Ooh, fair enough. And I have Kyler going under 34.5 rushing yards. I think he's going to be doing it with his arm today or tomorrow, Sunday, whatever day it is, not with his legs.
Sunday.
Exactly.
All righty, I like it. Kevin, they're curious about your dogs. Are they going into they playing Tennessee? Are they taking the win? They taking the L?
No, they're taking the win. This Tennessee team is extremely good. They're fast. They're competitive. But I don't believe that they're going to hang 49 points on Georgia like they did against Alabama. And it's a home game for the Dogs. Vegas has the game set at Georgia -8. They get paid a lot of money to win a lot of money for these casinos, not for the fan base. And everybody and their mothers drinking their orange Kool-Aid right now, picking Tennessee to win this game. It ain't going that way. Dogs are going to win this game. They will be the rightful number 1 team in the nation when they do these college football rankings on Tuesday. It's a mockery that they weren't at least 2. Ohio State had no business being 2, but I could talk about that for another hour and just get worked up about it. Dogs win. They'll be the new number 1 team in the nation.
You know my feelings on Big Ten football. So, yeah. Anyway, anybody that hasn't watched the show very long, if you keep watching, you'll hear my thoughts on Big Ten football come out here. Anyway, yep, we'll keep it family friendly tonight here. Anyway,
they have great offensive line play. That's about it.
Yep. Yeah, that is one good way to look at that one. Yeah, I think your Dogs win this one, right? The crazy thing is the head coach for Tennessee, the guy named Josh Heupel, who played for Oklahoma back in the day and was an offensive coordinator. And it was very interesting to think about this, that the Sooners moved on from Heupel to go get Lincoln Riley to bring him in. Very interesting to see maybe what would have happened had Heupel stayed put in Norman and had they continued going down that route. So all of those things, it's always kind of interesting to see some of the coaching trees and see how these things shake out. Because again, like that's one of those that people remember Heupel more, I think, from UCF and that offense that he put together down there than being on some of those great Oklahoma offenses back in the day before the Lincoln Riley era. Anyway, just a fun little tie in there. I got to try and fit my Sooners in any way I can because their on the field play this year is not allowing me to talk about them much. Anyway, moving on. There's Spirit IT saying that it'll be a battle for sure. He is an ACC football fan, it looks like, with being a FSU fan.
Yeah, ACC football's garbage.
Yeah, what's really a travesty is that Clemson managed to find their way into the top rankings there. But again, that's a different story for a different day. You take away the name power of Clemson over the last decade and give him, put any other team on that roster or that resume that they've got, and they're probably lucky to be in the top 10. Like TCU is far more deserving to be in the top 4 than Clemson is. Anyway, I digress, and we'll go down a rabbit hole here for sure. All right, let's go ahead and hit our next matchup here. The Bucks, the Rams, they're squaring off down in Tampa Bay. The Buccaneers are favored by 3. Over/under on this one, 42.5. What are your thoughts here?
I'm taking Tampa Bay. LA just sucks right now. They're coming in. They're on the road. I just don't think that they have it. I'm not convinced that they're going to be able to put up enough of a fight consistently. You're going to be able to kind of sit back and just worry about the pass and get after Matt Stafford. Cup's dinged up, so obviously you're going to be, still focused in on him, but you want to put the focus on everybody else, and now you have a chance to keep up with Cooper Kupp. So I like Tampa Bay, but I do like the over. I think that there's enough that you will see each team with, a couple touchdowns. Winning team will have 3, maybe 4, and we'll get a field goal or 2 in there. So I think that 42 is a little low. I'm thinking it's going to be closer to about a 46-point game.
Man, I got a hard time believing with both of these teams been this bad on offense, believing that they're going to, both manage to.
I am believing the Tom Brady locker room rally speech.
Maybe that's why I'm willing to say that Tampa Bay wins this game, but I think that this is going to be a 21-18, 22-18 type of, grudge match here. Very different. These two teams have performed very differently than what we thought they would have been coming into the season. Certainly much different than the teams that these two were, when they met up last year. But I do think that the under is going to come into play on this one. And speaking of under, I've got Cooper Kupp under 88.5 receiving yards in this one.
I'm going to take Chris Godwin, as if I haven't talked about him enough tonight, over 66.5 receiving.
I like it. And Spear IT, going back to his ACC football, the primetime Friday matchup tonight was Duke and Boston College.
Did BC come back and win that game?
I wasn't watching it. Spear IT, maybe you can give us an update here. If not, I can look it up.
Yeah, I had it on in the background as I was going through these props and filling out our show doc and everything else. And I knew Boston College was at least creeping back in it, but Duke was trying to keep them at arm's length.
Duke did keep them at arm's length. 38-31 was the final on that one, with the Duke Blue Devils holding off Boston College in a yes, absolutely. Alrighty. Well, that matchup wasn't necessarily riveting. This one could be. This one could be an interesting one here. Tennessee, Kansas City in the Sunday night game, and the Chiefs favored by 12.5. The over/under on this one, 46. What are your thoughts here?
Originally, I was going to go how you're going. I'm changing my mind. Tennessee is going to cover this spread. 12.5 is too big. Tennessee continues to find games to win. They are not pretty offensively, but Derrick Henry is a stinking juggernaut, and it doesn't matter if they only throw the ball 13 times a game. If they can give it to Derrick Henry 25 times a game and then sprinkle whoever else in a couple things to spell him a little bit, they're able to keep it within 12.5. Patrick Mahomes is 0-2 in his career against Tennessee in regular season football games. I think that changes, but I don't see him lighting the world on fire here. But what I am interested to see is Kadarius Toney.
Mm-hmm. That was one of those. I saw that trade go through. It happened to be on a day where free agency takes place in the home league, and immediately hit the add button. So I am hoping that we see some Kadarius Toney lights on this one, and help my roster out there a little bit. Anyway, I digress. I'm right there with you. I do think that that Patrick Mahomes finds a way to win this one. The difference for me in how this spread looks is if Ryan Tannehill starts, I think that Tennessee manages to keep this thing close enough to it, right? Like Tennessee, if Tannehill starts for Tennessee, I think this thing's probably a 27-20 matchup there. So just getting the over. I do think we get to the over regardless. But if Malik is the starter on for Tennessee, I think that you could see Kansas City cover. Like this one starts getting the feel of a 2-touchdown type of game there. But it's going to be like a late backdoor kind of cover on the KC side of things if it's Malik starting. But if Tannehill's starting, I think this is a touchdown game there. I do like the over in either case. And what I also like that it's going to go over is Patrick Mahomes going over his 277.5 passing yards.
I have a Derrick Henry anytime touchdown. Derek, I think you also found Derrick Henry 88.5 rushing yards. Is that right?
I believe so. I will tell you for sure.
I would take the over on that as well. So
it is. Yep. 88.5 rushing yards.
I would take the over on that as well.
Yep. I think that we could easily see him get there, right? Like that's one of those this year. If Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry to have, props less than about 90 yards, just take the over because they are both looking good and they're both kind of hitting that midseason form that they seemingly are going to get 100 yards on the ground almost week in and week out. So a lot of fun, kind of that old school smash mouth, great running back football there. All right, let's go ahead and head on over to Monday night. And the Ravens and the Saints are going to play in this Monday night game. The Ravens are favored by 2.5. Over on this one is 48. What are your thoughts here?
I'm taking the Saints at home and the under. No Rashad Bateman. We assume Mark Andrews is going to play, but it is entirely possible that they sit Mark Andrews because the Ravens have the bye week next week and kind of get that 2-for-1 little deal to make sure he's healthy for the home stretch and the playoff push. So more to come this weekend. Stay tuned. But I like the Saints at home on this one. I think the crowd's going to be crazy for a Monday night game. That will make things a little bit more difficult for Lamar Jackson and company. So Saints under.
I like the Saints as well on this one, right? The Saints have been putting up a ton of points on the offensive side of the ball, kind of ever since they made the switch over to Andy Dalton. And I think that holds true there. The Ravens also putting up quite a few points there as well. This one has the feelings of a fun little, over type of matchup for me on this one. Not going to surprise me to see this one come down to be a 28-25, 27-24 type of matchup here. I do think that the Saints managed to certainly cover this one and even take the win on this one. Right there with you on that one. And as far as the over, I also like the over on Alvin Kamara going over 60.5 rushing yards in this matchup.
I have a Chris Olave anytime touchdown. No Michael Thomas, no problemo.
Yeah, we may very well see the Jarvis Landry experiment here again, but I think you're right. I think that this is an Olave week. Dalton likes looking.
Landry only helps Olave.
Yes.
And again, it's much like another situation. He takes enough pressure off, kind of how Claypool helps Mooney. Landry will help Olave.
Yep, I like it. Well, any other thoughts on any of the games there?
No, different. I think it should be a fun slate, right? I mean, you got some divisional matchups. Obviously, the Sunday night game is going to be fun. The Sunday afternoon game with the Rams and Bucks, most people are going to be watching that one, so that'll be good. And then there's a couple snoozers in here. Like there just is. Carolina, Cincinnati doesn't really look sexy. Miami Bears don't look sexy. That's just how it is. But again, we're pushing through, right? Continue to pound the waiver wire because 6 teams on bye sucks.
Yes. And again, guys, if you have any questions, you know where to find us: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at Good Old Boys FF. And again, one of the best places to support this independent podcast, head over to the YouTube, click the subscribe button on the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast YouTube channel. You can also get there now, going youtube.com/at Good Old Boys FF on that one there as well. So head over there, ask us questions. We'll hit it up. We'll get back to you just as quick as we can. But Kevin, any final thoughts here before we call it a night?
No, thanks everyone for tuning in. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. Like Derek just said, best of luck. Let us know if you need our help. We're more than happy to lend our voices and opinions. And until next time. Absolutely. And guys, that's going to do it for us. Again, any questions in the meantime, hit us up on those socials: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at Good Old Boys FF, and that YouTube channel. Head over there, click the subscribe button, ring the bell when we go live, you get all the notifications, and smash the yes button. Leave us plenty of comments. We like responding to them, like answering your questions through there as well. He's Kevin. I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe.